Hello everyone, welcome to the episode 4 of the KC show. My name is Kenneth Cheng. How are you all doing? And I hope you all are having a fine day while listening to this show. So for this show, for the episode 4 of this show, we'll be covering 3 topics. And first the topic will be concerning the Malaysia Communication and Multimedia Commission. So recently the Malaysia Communication and Multimedia Commission has actually obtained our call and internet usage data, and to me this is quite concerning, especially in the manner of how they try to obtain the data and how the operation seems a bit under the light, and it's not a lot of people was reporting it. So I thought I'd try to cover this topic in a more concise manner. So just for context, is that recently the Malaysia Communication and Multimedia Commission has admitted that they did ask telecommunication company to share user call and internet usage records with them. So according to MCMC, most importantly, they will always argue this, that no personal identifiable information, PII, is assessed, processed, or disclosed in the data collection exercise. So basically, they just want all of the users' internet and call data, but there's no personal identifiable information. Basically, there's not of your name and stuff like that, so they wouldn't know who is the one at that exact time was texting messages or using internet. So that's what their argument is, So the collection of this data is strictly used according to the MCMC for the ICT, the Information Communication Technology and Tourism sector. So for the ICT sector, these data apparently is to use to produce granular statistics, as according to them, such as the number of active mobile broadband subscriptions, penetrations rates at the state level, district level, mukim level, and stuffs like that. So they are basically talking about how many people at a certain parliamentary constituency or at a certain state level is using internet, is getting call, is using 5G or using 4G. So this collection of data also, they argue, helps with the tourism sector. According to them, this is to generate indicators such as the number of visitors and domestic tourism trips. So they say all this and saying that in the process to ensure privacy of personal data, so aside from they are not wanting personal identifiable information, they say that telecommunication company can process all this data within their own secure environment and submit the required anonymized and aggregated output to MCMC. So basically, the telco company can, when they are processing the data, they can anonymize the data. So basically hide or basically delete the personal identifiable information and then only send it to the MCMC. Or alternatively, they can actually submit the anonymized data to MCMC for processing. So some of the data collected as reviewed by MCMC is that there will be an anonymized subscriber identifier. These are data they are collecting, is that the date and time of transmission, transmitter longitude and transmitter latitude. So basically they will be able to know that anonymized person, where did they, in the exact position, where did they make that use the data or use or this mobile phone data or make a call or use internet. So there are also other data that they are collecting, such as data type or service type. So basically, they will also know that if you are using 3G, 4G or 5G. So I want to repeat before I speak about the problems here, is that all this data collected are for the purpose of, as I've again just said, for the ICT sector and for the tourism sector. But again, there are a few problems here, which I believe that, as I've said before, that is quite concerning, is that there is a very, very lack of transparency towards the whole operation. Why do I say that? Is that because this news was first found out through a news report, through a leak, apparently some would argue is through a leak, and then only MCMC reply trying to play down this whole incident by releasing a statement and subsequently having a briefing on 9th of June. And I would like to ask, if this news was never leaked and if this news was never made it to the public, would the government or Ministry of Communication and also MCMC would care to review this exercise, which is infringing on our, in some ways that they are taking our own personal data and for some governmental purpose as they claim, because I do believe that we need to have a say on this, or at the very least that we need to know that the government is taking our data, but they never had that. To be fair to them, they now informed us, and they have a public briefing on the 9th of June just recently, as we are recording this on the 12th of June. So just 3 days ago, they had a briefing, but this news was first leaked last week, and a lot of news media, and in fact, I gathered most of this information from Soya Chinchao, a brilliant local tech news site in Malaysia, and also South China Morning Post. Basically, international media is already reporting it. Then only MCMC released a public statement, if I'm not mistaken, during last weekend, and subsequently held the briefing. So we do have legitimate grounds to actually ask that why was the press statement and why was the briefing done only after the news was leaked up? And in terms of why, during the briefing, someone actually asked the MCMC that why was this whole grand personal data acquiring exercise was not informed to the public. The MCMC commissioner said that, again, I sourced this piece of information from Soya Chinchao. Give them a follow. It's good tech news, and I always I get all my tech news from soyachinchao.com. So according to Soya Chinchao, which I believe that they are present in the briefing, they claim that the MCMC commissioner, Derek John Fernandez, one of the commissioner, I believe that, explained that it is still in its pilot phase. That's why they don't want to review it into the public. But again, that brings back to another problem. Even in its infancy phase, even if it is in its pilot phase, there are bound to be data that has been acquired. And this is however you may suggest, this is someone's data. This is some Malaysians' data. This is someone who may be in Malaysia traveling, foreigners who are using telecommunication services. These are their data, So even in its infancy and its pilot phase, some data are collected, and since we don't know whoever's data has been collected, I do believe in this case, Ministry of Communication and MCMC own the public to at least announce it to us that what they are doing. At the very least, if you are not seeking consensus, you are not seeking consultation, at least let us know. So this is the whole non-transparent method that how this whole incident that played out that caused concern to me especially, and a lot of netizens, especially in Twitter and in other social media, has already spoken out about this issue. Then I tried to dig more into this issue while I'm trying to do this episode, is that MCMC, as I've said just now, MCMC say that the data has been anonymized, and personal identifiable information, basically your PII, basically your name and your stuff, like things that are very personal that could identify who you are when of that data, will not be collected. Again, this is not good enough, apparently. So I did some research, is that even if for the data that has been collected, basically the MSISDN and anonymized subscriber identifier, your date and time of transmission, your transmitter longitude and latitude and data type, these are all data that is good enough for a competent data engineer to reverse engineer it and thus identify someone. So it is not good enough to just say that the PII will not be sourced from the telco, but at the same time, the data, the non-PII data that has been collected has good enough information to actually for people to find out that who are those people from the phone call data. So I believe this is quite concerning when there's not much transparency, and when it comes to personal data, we seem to give a carte blanche to the government to the present government to do whatever they want. Then I also may ask, even in the briefing, and I don't think this whole public exercise is huge, is something that collecting your personal data, and I don't think a lot of doubts and concerns could be answered in just one press statement and just one briefing. So again, something that I suddenly thought of is that are any third-party contractors involved in the data collection process, maybe the data processing, where MCMC might outsource it to a data company, and they might be engaging in illicit activities that could steal our data and to use it for something else, even to use it for something else. So these are things that was not revealed to us. And again, I back to the point is that I think that MCMC do have the right to actually obtain all this data in order to ensure better policy making, to end up, basically you can use this data and see that probably there are some places where that uses a lot of core or uses a lot of internet or things like that, and that would surely enhance policy making, and that would actually make better policy making. And collecting this data would help the government in the path towards policy making, but that's not the way of how you do it in such a non-transparent manner. So I guess that's my biggest concern. And I just wanted to ask this question also, is that would the data be used for political or election purposes? That is the concern that I have, because when they say that the collection of this data is strictly used to produce granular statistics such as the number of active mobile broadband subscriptions and penetration rates at the state, district, mukim, and this is what they say. They say in parliamentary constituency, in Dewan Undangan Negeri and local authority levels. But if you are looking at making good, if you are crafting policy on the basis of using this data, I don't believe, and on a federal level, that I don't believe that trying to filtering it into parliamentary constituency would do benefit. Because if you are setting up a 5G network, you don't just confine it to a parliamentary constituency, right? So again, was all this data being collected, being sourced for election or political purposes? And why was it specifically being mentioned parliamentary constituency, dune, and local authority levels? And again, I need to stress that these are what they have said, and I just copy and paste and I read it out for the public to judge. This is a bit of red flag to me when they specifically mention parliamentary constituency. It certainly hardens the perception that this is being used for election purposes. So I wanted to say that. So before I sort of like wrap up this thing, is that I also read again from Soya Chinchao, is that I read this open letter that was being posted in Soya Chinchao, and they argues that even if names and IC numbers are removed, there is enough data as what I've just written, the data that they are collected, there's enough data to track an individual and also monitor his or her behavior. So again, that is concerning to me. Yeah. So I wanted to bring this point and just wrapped up, is that this is a very important point also, is that according to a lot of the tech news sites like Soya Chinchao and some other news site that have research, right? And even if the government has found to be misusing this data, the Personal Data Protection Act, the PDPA, which governs Malaysia data privacy, right, has a key loophole. And what is the loophole? Is that the act does not apply to federal and state government. So therefore, in any scenario where MCMC were being found to be abusing or to misuse this data for nefarious purposes, the PDPDA won't be able we cannot possibly use PDPDA to hold them accountable. And therefore, MCMC might be exempted for any potential data malpractice, which is, again, very concerning. So what can MCMC do, So as I've just said, there is nothing wrong for MCMC to gather this personal data in order to enhance policy making, in order to make better decision in the in the administrative level, when you are thinking about trying to ensure that everyone has access to good telecommunication network. So, but to resolve this incident, this situation, to manage this PR, this public relation, and since the news has been leaked out, a lot of people has been unhappy about it because it was leaked out. So in future, if there is something like this, I thought that MCMC should be able to do better in terms of how is that they should try to communicate to the public thoroughly on why this is necessary, because right now we just only have one public statement, and secondly one a public briefing, which is not good enough. It answers some question, but again it raises much more questions. So I felt that this consultation purposes should be continued. In fact, the whole practice, this data, apparently I heard that they already obtained the data, and I think they should just stop this exercise, and they should just stop using this data, to stop utilizing this data first. Ensure that there is public participation, ensure that there's some form of public buy-in. And that happens through numerous consultation and numerous stakeholder meetings, and tell it to the public, sell it to the public. Why is this necessary? You cannot just give out two sentences. This is for ICT sector, for blah, 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 for what level, for tourism sector, in order to enhance this, in order to ensure data penetration and all this. This is not good enough, especially when it comes to things that is very, very private, which is our personal data. So you're basically obtaining a data where you can track that. Where are we using the phone? Where are we calling people? And when are we activating our 5G, And also be transparent and honest by, like I say, by providing more details on how the data will be collected and processed. So this is for the first segment, and we'll be back later. Hello everyone, welcome to the part 2, and we'll be doing Fahmi Reza and his travel restriction for the second segment. So just a little bit of context, although I know this news has probably reached around everyone's ears and eyes already, but I just want to recap before I give my views on this Fahmi Reza travel restriction. On 7th of June, political activist / political illustrator Fahmi Reza said he was stopped from boarding a flight to Singapore after being informed that he was blacklisted from traveling overseas. Basically, he was being restricted from traveling overseas. He arrived at KLIA 2 that day around 7:30 a.m. to catch a 9:35 a.m. flight, which is very standard, very basic, for a short 2-day trip to attend a punk concert. Basically, he wanted to attend a punk concert in Singapore, and he's being barred from leaving the country. So, when arriving to the international departure counter, the immigration officers told him that he had been flagged and needed to wait at their office. So eventually, he was being told that he was prohibited from leaving the country, and the only explanation that was given by the immigration official is says that Bukit Aman is basically what the immigration official says, that Bukit Aman banned you from leaving the country. Basically told Fahmi Reza that, and he was escorted out to the departure area. So he was incensed, he was angry, and immediately he made the video and he wrote a long post about it, where I believe most of you found out if you follow his Facebook. So this was this move, Fahmi Reza being restricted or being banned from traveling overseas, tarnished the government. A lot of netizens in social media are very furious about it. So the next day, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim has released a statement and said that he has directed the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Tan Sri Ayub Khan, to review the travel restriction imposed on Fahmi Reza. He also maintained that the Madani government is committed to uphold the right to freedom of movement and civil liberties. So basically trying to soothe the public anger and trying to save the situation from getting worse, because they has been being battered left, right and center for doing some of the things that what they have criticized, because last time when they were in opposition, they criticized the Najib government at that time for restricting Maria Chins from leaving the country, if I'm not mistaken, around 2016 or 2017. So shortly after the Prime Minister released the statement, then we have an official response from the police. So IGP of Malaysia, Razaruddin Hussein, said that the police have not imposed any travel restrictions on Fahmi Reza. Instead, IGP said that he is free to travel in and out of the country. Fahmi is not in the travel ban list, but he's under the enforcement's official monitoring list, which monitors the movement of all these individuals. So they have a list, and these individuals are under the monitoring list. But I need to emphasize that this monitoring list is different from the travel restrictions list, because Fahmi Reza is not, although is being monitored by the government for, I don't know for what reasons, most probably for political reasons, but he is not being banned from traveling elsewhere. So obviously, when the IGP released such a statement, I think it actually makes the situation worse, because you are actually telling Fahmi Reza that you are actually free to travel out of the country, but it's just that we messed up. We somehow mistook the monitoring list as the travel restriction list. And Fahmi, shortly after, Fahmi released a statement and said that I'm paraphrasing what Fahmi Reza said, is that while you are saying that I am allowed to leave the country, but in reality, I was restricted. I was banned from attending the punk concert that I wanted to go. So under this kind of situation, he is planning to sue the government, which I think he is within his right to do so, and I would support him on doing this, because he is effectively being denied his freedom of movement. For no reason, because again, I need to emphasize that he is not in the travel restrictions list. So why do I believe that Fahmi is well within his right to do so? Is because, again, part of the reason is that this government has a meek explanation on this entire PR disaster. First of all, from the statement of the Prime Minister and subsequently from the IGP, there is no apology. There was an official apology of saying that I'm sorry, I apologize to you, Fahmi Reza, for this. And the explanation was not good enough. Just because he is in the monitoring list, why does it translate to him being banned from traveling outside? There was no explanation to this. There was no explanation. There was no explanation why someone from the Home Ministry, be it immigration or be it on the side of the police, mistook the monitoring list as the travel restriction list. It creates a dangerous precedent. It creates a dangerous precedent that people under a monitoring list could now also potentially be banned from traveling. And whatever you say that, Fahmi Reza was not banned, I felt like it was a bit arrogant from the government and from the IGP to say that. The truth of the matter is that Fahmi Reza was denied the chance to go to Singapore to attend concert or to do anything that he wanted. And his civil liberties has been curtailed in this. And it is much more surprising that the government didn't apologize, or even someone from Home Ministry, and a proper explanation was not given. The only explanation was given is that he was in the monitoring list, and that's not good enough. I just want to end this section, short section, because is incredibly easy to talk about it, and we all know that in this case the Madani government screwed up. The immigration officials and police officials still own a public apology, because there was no sorry. It's just merely saying that, oh, you are actually allowed to travel outside of the country, but it's just that you are in the monitoring list. So increasingly, this also tells us that the Madani government is getting increasingly unpopular, and with mishaps like that, people will just think that you are not sincere in reform, and you are just BN light, and you are just doing things that what BN normally would do. But the main reason people voted for PH is to ask you, is to demand you or to give you a mandate to do things differently from the X regime, from the BN regime. So similar to also the recent case about Teo Beng Hock is that a lot of rhetorics by PH, from PH, and saying that we'll respect human rights, we'll respect civil liberties, unlike the dark days of Mahathir, BN under Mahathir, Najib, or even Abdullah Badawi. PH is worse in the case that their rhetoric does not match their deeds or actions, or non-actions in this case. And also, we see that, just wanted to, one last point before we go to our third topic, is that just this one point that I noticed is that a lot of times the cabinet, especially with the prime minister and the ministers, a lot of times when mishap happens, or a lot of time when a crisis happens, or the government messed up on something, or government created a blunder, did a blunder, there is no, that is deflecting the responsibility. There is pushing the blame to someone else, and sometimes it's civil servant in this case. In this case, in the Prime Minister's statement on Fahmi Reza's non-travel restriction, it was clear that he is pushing the blame. He says that the Madani government continues to respect civil liberties of Malaysians provided you follow the rule of law and all this kind of thing. He says that we actually never intend to ban Fahmi Reza from leaving the country. And if you don't, the reality is that you did, the immigration official did, and you are part of the government. In fact, you are the top executive. Yeah, in fact, the cabinet is the highest decision maker of the government, and it's unacceptable something like that still happen from a PH government, and yet it happened, and there's there's no admission of, yeah, we did something wrong, we were not good enough, we will be better. There's nothing like that. This is not just a singular case. A lot of times when we have throughout these few years of Madani rule, we have seen this happening again and again, saying that, yeah, we continue to respect, something unfortunate happened, and we'll direct someone to be responsible about it, to find out what happened. And most of the times, the results, the investigation results, there will be no follow-up, and just praying that hopefully that Malaysians will have short memories and will forget about it and move on. I don't think it's not a card that you can continue to play, and it will just make the present government more and more unpopular. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about Fahmi Reza and his travel restrictions, non-travel restrictions actually. We'll take a break and we'll come back shortly for our final topic today. Hi everyone, welcome back to the third topic. So I thought of something like, we try to do the first two topic is about Malaysia topic, then the third one we do a bit of international. We try to look at things that happen globally and see whether things are worth discussing, I believe. And yeah, because it's my own show, I can do whatever I want. So I thought the third topic should be something that would be international. And because I personally invested into international politics and how the society works internationally, so I thought we try to cover things that are beyond Malaysia, and we try to talk briefly about it. So for this week, I wanted to talk about something that I believe all the viewers and listeners are all aware of, is between the spat of Trump and Musk. I just want to offer my 2 cents on it, because I do believe that behind the spat, it seems incredibly childish in my opinion, that one is the most powerful man in the world, and the second one is the richest man in the world, arguing against each other in social media about and the manner that they argue is just, in a way, is clownish and funny. But there is a deep divide within the MAGA faction too, I believe, and it's the faction that side with Elon Musk that is on the losing end actually, because yeah, because of what I'm going to say later, and I do believe that this is the bigger picture that we should look at, and it perhaps give us a hint of how Donald Trump economic policy direction and how he would govern in general. So in this next 3 years under his presidency. So just provide a little bit of context is that according to my research is like it started with Elon Musk attacking Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, BBB. And I just recently found out that the reason why it was called Big Beautiful Bill is sort of like a retaliation to Biden's Build Back Better, because Biden's Build Back Better legislation is a spending legislation too. It's a budget legislation. Is BBB2. So Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, and it started with Elon Musk attacking it in, I believe, in X, formerly Twitter, whereby he says that it will increase the U.S. national debt to 2.4 trillion. I think this was being substantiated by the budget office too, if I'm not mistaken. So basically a lot of tax cuts in the Big Beautiful Bill, which will make the US national debt further ballooned. Then the mudslinging officially started, where Trump said that he was very disappointed in Elon Musk and threatened to cut Musk companies' government contracts. Then Musk was furious at this time, I believe, that was saying that Trump should be impeached, and according to him, he dropped the big bomb. He dropped the big bomb. He said that He said that I'm paraphrasing it. Is that he say something like, "Here is the big bomb. Is that Trump is in the Epstein file." So Epstein files. So for listeners and viewers who don't know what is the Epstein file, is that the Epstein files is a government document that is about this individual called Jeffrey Epstein, who is a child sex offender that procure many women and minors whom he and his associates sexually abuse. So the files purportedly contain a number of high-profile political and business figures in the United States and abroad, which link to this sexual exploitation scheme against minors. So basically, Elon Musk is accusing Donald Trump that he is in the Epstein's files, means that he is involved in Epstein's sexual exploitation scheme. So this is where things stands. And I was being informed that there was new development, because I blocked Musk from X, so I wouldn't know what he was tweeting or he was writing in posts. That he tracked back. He said that some of his posts that he posted, because he posted this last week and we are recording this in this week, he posted someone saying that Trump should be impeached. Trump is in the Epstein file. This thing he said that this has gone a bit too much. Apparently, I saw that in New York Times. He said that he tried to make Elon Musk made a phone call to Donald Trump and apologized. So that's the latest, and who knows what this will happen. So just several points here that I want to point out is that a lot of people was I guess a lot of Trump and Musk supporter was saying that this is a bromance relationship that is good, it will last. But in my opinion, it is not fated to last, as we all knows that what happened when two narcissists are competing for attention, was in a relationship, was in a friendship, will eventually split out, and they will eventually fight against each other. Because I saw this dictum which is quite true, and which I can't help but remember, is that in both Trump and Musk universe, there should be only one sun, and the center of attention should be either on Musk and Trump, and they would not tolerate each other for trying to steal the attention away. So this is how narcissist works. And I believe that this was always a marriage of convenience, just solely to make sure that Kamala Harris does not win the presidency. So they are probably more united in this anti-wokeism, this anti-DEI, diversity, inclusion agenda, and all this basically woke stuff that they basically dislike and hate. And this is where their commonality lies and their opposition against Biden and Kamala. So after the victory, after they defeated the common enemy, which in this case is Kamala Harris, when they try to govern together, there's bound to be friction happens because there's too much that they disagree with each other. So a lot of people say that at least in this case, Elon Musk is principled, because he's being a fiscal hawk, he's saying that he's concerned about the national debt, he has this fiscal rectitude that should be applauded. But I do believe that is shaky because in my opinion, the Trump's BBB's Big Beautiful Bill biggest problem is the redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich. And according to some sources, with 1.1 trillion tax cuts and a slash in Medicaid. Medicaid is basically healthcare that is public healthcare that is being provided by the U.S. government to the needy and to the economically disadvantaged people in America. So this is where I believe that one of the posts from Social Truth from Donald Trump is pretty good, is that this where saying that Donald Trump has rightly said that the easiest ways to reduce government debt is to actually withdraw financial support for Elon Musk and other big companies in terms of subsidies and contract. So go back to the point where why I believe that Elon Musk is not like an ideologue or not a principled fiscal hawk, in the sense that he wants a balanced budget, he wants the national debt to be drastically reduced. Because if you are concerned about a reduction in the national debt, you should think of the tax cuts that is being applied to the rich is reducing the government coffers. So if you want the national debt to recover, or basically not increase as much as 2.4 trillion according to the OBR, there shouldn't be so many tax cuts towards the towards the wealthy. In fact, there should be a tax increase and a redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor. It's not from the poor to the rich. What we are looking at the Big Beautiful Bill right now is that a redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich in the form of tax cuts. Because if under Donald Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, there will be a lot of tax cuts for the wealthy, and the tax cuts for the wealthy need to be paid for. And how you need to be paid for the tax cut is by reducing the medical care, is by reducing the social support the US government provided to the downtrodden and to the poor people and to the economically disadvantaged people in America. So that's why, to me, this Elon's feud with Donald Trump is less ideological but more on naked self-interest. So I believe that is, and I believe that because I sincerely believe this, because and in fact my reasoning I gave is that Elon opposes the BBB is more about one piece of legislation that removes the tax credit on the purchase of EV. And this again goes back to Trump ideology. And under Trump's ideology, he was never a big fan of electric vehicles. So why should the government subsidize people for buying electric vehicle in America? Basically Tesla we're talking about. So they must, and so there is this removal of tax credit on electric vehicles from under the BBB, and this is where Elon Musk is angry about, and this is the piece of legislation I think he finds it most disagreeable, because it hits into his own company Tesla, and Tesla are suffering a decline in sales. Their sales has tanked, especially in Europe, because of his association with Donald Trump. So from Elon Musk's point of view, he would be thinking that I've paid a huge price in being associated with your administration and with you personally, and the least you can do is continue to dole out government contracts, continue to dole out subsidies for me, just in case, just to help at least sustain or help to improve the business the business of Tesla. So this is I guess the main reason why this feud happened, because I hear even my friends were saying that, at least Musk is ideological about the government debt. It's not true. If you're sincere about government debt, the one that we should look at is tax cuts from the rich, instead of trying to take away Medicaid or take away public health care from the ordinary Americans. So aside from the tax subsidy on EV, we also see that Elon Musk is not happy. In fact, he is angry about the tariff that was imposed by President Trump. So this, we can see that there is a significant disagreement, a significant schism between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And part of the reason why this happens also is, I guess, Elon Musk has not been doing a good job in his Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. So according to reports, he aimed to cut 2 trillion in spending, but in his own estimate, he only shaved off around 150 billion from the federal budget. From 2 trillion, he aimed to cut 2 trillion in the federal government, but he only succeeded by cutting 150 billion. He was not deemed to be a success. Doge was not deemed to be a success. That's why he quit. That's why he left Doge, and Doge, if I'm not mistaken, has been disbanded. So again, this side topic, which we can talk about it later also, this brings out another issue, is that a small government, a string government, a government with limited spending may sound good in theory, but it is hard to achieve, as most government spending is essential services to the common people. There's a limit to how much you can cut the government, you can make the government efficient. Of course, the idea of government efficiency is something that we should all strive to, but you cannot do it at the expense that you deny public services to people. So I do believe that this is where Elon Musk and Donald Trump has that issue also, because I remember there was once Donald Trump wanted to talk about cutting defense spending, or but personally I do believe that defense spending, at least in US, should be cut. But in the end, when he ended up in the White House, in the Oval Office, there was not much defense spending cut. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the defense spending increased actually because of some of the vanity project that Donald Trump wanted to proceed. So this is something that we can talk about, but back to the point is that Elon Musk did not do a successful in Doge, but because I don't know where this figure come from that he aimed to cut 2 trillion in spending, but he only managed to cut it. So managed to cut it around 150 billion. So of course, this also plays a part that why he disagreed with the BBB, in the sense that I've only succeeded cutting 150 billion, and you introduce this bill. You introduce this bill that will further balloon the debt to 2.4 trillion. So that actually humiliate him in some ways, that and render whatever he does in Doge previously for the past few months is a waste of time. So there was this ideological faction that I wanted to briefly talk about. So Musk represents the technocrat, the tech bros faction in the MAGA camp, led by Donald Trump, of course, that these are your technocrats, these are your tech bros, these are the people that generally believe in a more free economy, basically low tax, zero tariff, and liberalizing the economy. But the thing is that Trump only believed in cutting taxes. Typical businessmen believe in low tax will inspire entrepreneurship, inspire innovation, business will boom, and in that will inspire growth. But Trump is a strong is an ideologue in terms of tariff policy. So this is where you see that he has a schism in terms of economic policy with Elon Musk. But again, this tech bros, this, I call it the free marketeers, represented by Elon Musk and people like Peter Thiel and these people, they supported Trump, and now there seems to be getting a little bit of buyer remorse because of the way how Donald Trump handles the economy. And we cannot also discount that there are those genuinely old school conservatives who are ideologues on trying to balance the budget and basically reducing the government debt. They also find that increasingly they could not agree with the economy direction of Donald Trump, as when he tried to introduce the BBB. So this is an issue that we'll continue to look at, and we'll try to monitor, because I feel that this division will only get deeper, and it will further alienate a lot of supporters, this faction of supporters, and perhaps might also weaken Donald Trump's presidency. And we have a midterm elections coming up, and things might be different. So yeah, we'll continue to monitor this, but this is in terms of Trump and Musk. I don't know whether are they still bros or not, since Elon Musk has ate the humble pie and apologized and somehow backed down from his criticism against Donald Trump. We'll continue to look at this issue, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that is the end of part 3, and that's the end of also the end of episode 4 of the KC show, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again.